Thanks for coming today. My name is Eleni Balakrishnan. I'm a reporter with Mission Local here in San Francisco. We're a small nonprofit newsroom, and I cover policing, criminal justice, and I've done some coverage on the Sheriff's Department. And we're here with the League of Women Voters of San Francisco, which is a nonprofit, or sorry, nonpartisan political nonprofit that defends democracy. They provide education, encouraging people to vote in elections and participate in government. And they also engage in advocacy to influence public policy that benefits the community. And we're here with a member of the Sheriff's Oversight Board. Just before we get started, I'll just let you know this event's going to last 30 minutes. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and our volunteers with the League of Women Voters will collect them and give them to me. We may not be able to get to all of the questions, but hopefully we can get a few in. And this event is being recorded and will be posted to the League of Women Voters SF YouTube page in a few days. And there'll be a link on their website, lwvsf.org. So here we are with Ovava Afuhaamango. Do you want to introduce yourself, Ovava?
Yes, thank you, Eleni. Hi, everyone. My name is Ovava Afuhaamango. I am a Pacific Islander, specifically Samoan and Tongan. I was born and raised here in SF. A few things about myself. My day job is in marketing for a beauty retail company. And I went to all of the schools here in SF. City College is one of them. And I finished my bachelor's at UCLA in English Lit and Public Policy. And I'm really excited to chat more with the members about my experience and just create greater awareness about the board.
Nice. Well, thanks for being here. I guess let's get started with just the overall question of what is the Sheriff's Oversight Board? What's the purpose of it, and what is it meant to do?
Yes. Oh, before I dive in, I just also want to note that, and just like more so as a caveat, that these are my personal views, rather than the board's position on some of them. I can answer for myself as a board member and from my experience, but yeah, really my goal is to bring greater awareness to the board. So with that said, the purpose of the board is to provide independent, impartial, and diligent oversight of the Sheriff's Department through the Office of Inspector General. This is a definition on our website. And then adding to it, my own personal why is centering the experiences of in-custody clients and impacted families.
So it's a pretty new board. When did it come together? When did you start meeting?
Yes, that's a good question. So as far as I understand it, the history of how and why it started, or the why and how it started, in 2015, the late Jeff Adachi from the Public Defender's Office brought to light this deputy misconduct, or kind of the infamous Fight Club scandal that happened. And it's kind of still going through litigation. In 2019, as a response, Supervisor Shaman Walton proposed an independent oversight board for the Sheriff's Department, and it was brought to the public to vote on in 2021. And it garnered over two-thirds vote in favor of establishing the board. And that approved charter created two bodies of oversight: the San Francisco Sheriff's Oversight Board, which I'm on, and then the Office of Inspector General.
So what is the board itself empowered to do in its oversight role?
Yeah.
I know people know about the Police Commission, which has been around for a long time doing oversight of the police department. How does that differ, and what are your powers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I'm gonna kind of explain what is within our capacity. It's very different than the Police Commission and Department of Police Accountability, in the sense that we don't have as much political bite. But our board really is meant to be a watchdog and kind of help give, at best, policy recommendations that the sheriff's office can choose to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that the gist of the work that we do, we appoint and can remove the inspector general. We evaluate the inspector general's work and conduct also community outreach. And then we also have to submit a quarterly report to the Board of Supervisors.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit about your role on the board. What brought you to join the board? Do you like it? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, on the real, I mean, I have my grievances. I'm not, it's interesting because, it's my first role in like kind of like government role. My day job is like corporate. It's like far removed. I'm talking about products, makeup products. And this is very different from what I do in my day to day. But what brought me to this is really honestly, like I have families who have been in custody. They are and have been in custody clients. And I just know the history of, how the carceral system here in America, and I just wanted to be more involved and participate and just help as much as I can. Um, and so with that said, I'm being in it, like this is what we're coming up to second or third year of me being in this role. And it's a newly established board. I think also too, I need to help. It's important for me to understand that it's like you're building the plane. So it's not like
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I was like, when are we going to actually do work? But I think because we have the inspector general hired now, we can kind of hit the ground running a little bit faster than, previously. So,
Yeah. So I do want to talk more about the Inspector General, but first, can you tell us a bit? I mean, you mentioned about wanting to get started on the work. So what have board members been doing, or do you have specific roles already outlined? I know you started meeting in late 2022 or so.
yes, that
So
is
it's been
correct.
a while, and I know you've been hiring the Inspector General, but is that the main thing that's been happening? Do you guys have other roles?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We do have goals in mind. I think when
Or
I
sorry,
think
roles was
roles.
what I was asking. Like things you're working on individually as board members.
Oh, got it, got it. That's a good question. I think individually, okay, this just to be super transparent, my two main goals is like community outreach and then working with our media partners to kind of help shape not public, but a public perception in terms of engaging community participation. Like if there is a way to empower them and to like, get the word out that, hey, we exist, this board exists. Number two, we need the community. It's like I see it as an important stakeholder to um, bringing the board's vision to life. Like, so this is part of the reason why I wanted to reach out, and it includes the League of Women Voters, which I'm very new and green to like the existing community org. So this is like, well, the only one that I do know is the one that's active in my community, the Samoan Community Development Center. But there's so many in San Francisco that I want to make sure that I understand and see if I can leverage in a way that, gets them to be more or actively participate in the work that we do.
That
So
makes
yeah, those are the two big ones for me personally.
Gotcha. And how were you appointed? You were appointed by the Board of Supervisors?
Yes, correct. I mean, I just to explain the process, I was looking to get more involved. My sister, she works in a public government role, so she was like, "Oh, why don't you apply to this role, this newly established board?" She sends me the application, I apply, and then I remember going to a meeting and just kind of explaining like what my experience was, and then Supervisor Walton selected me as one of the three members that he could appoint.
I want to say it's 4 members from
Oh,
the board
you're
and 3 from the mayor, right?
I,
Yeah.
you know what? You're probably right. I feel like it's four. No, you're right.
Four
Yeah.
members of the board.
Yep.
Or maybe one of them is a member of the sheriff's union, so maybe that's it out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
um, and so everyone's staying there, been there since the beginning, and is staying on for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
Okay. And so let's move on to staffing that the board has been working on. So you were hiring the inspector general. That was a lengthy process. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about maybe other departments that you work with to do your jobs there on the board.
Yeah. So we worked closely with the Department of Human Resources. Human Resource DHR, to help recruit and bring us qualifying candidates for this position. It was lengthy. I think just general, like, also I'm new to this, so it's not something like I have something to compare it to. But when we compared it to going with like a recruitment agency, an outside recruitment agency, the difference was only by like 2 or 3 months difference. And we felt like we could go with DHR, particularly because they have experience, they kind of understand how to work within our budget. There are several factors at play, but ultimately I do think that DHR did a good job. And we worked step by step with them as far as like, okay, this is the ideal candidate that we want. Here's like, we want this type of experience. We kind of help lay out like the ideal job description. And then in terms of timing, I think it just took the time that it did. But you know what? I'm okay with that in the sense that we wanted to make sure that we hired the right candidate. Like, we could have hired a candidate in 2 months, but was that the right person for the role? Like, it was super important for us to make sure that the inspector general that we hired was experienced, had the experience, had the expertise, and could handle the role, especially since this is a newly established office.
So we as the public haven't really gotten to know him. He's kind of briefly introduced himself at a meeting. Can you tell me a little bit about him or what his goals were that he stated to you in the interview process that made him seem like the best candidate?
I think I would be more comfortable deferring to him. Just because I don't want to speak on his behalf and I probably will misremember some of the things that he mentioned, so I don't want to speak on his behalf. I can say just from my personal experience of why I really like I felt that he was experienced was that he knew about the different communities that were at play in San Francisco. And just because community is such an important value for me, we were kind of going back and forth about how he saw engaging different community orgs in San Francisco. And I just felt like that was super important. It was one of his values. And so that was something that was important to me and I liked.
Gotcha.
I'm jumping in with a question from the audience actually about the Inspector General. It's a follow-up. The person wanted to know how long the Inspector General position will last. Is it long-term? Is it only for a set period? And they're concerned that he doesn't have staff or strong support. It took forever to hear him, and there's rumors that San Francisco might lose him due to budget constraints.
Oh, this is a good one. So I'm going to be transparent. I don't know about losing. I think that's just a rumor that we would lose him. He is, from my talks with him, he is very excited and has been super responsive to all of my concerns and issues that I brought to his attention. And then the second piece, Jada, forgive me. I'm like, what was the other question? I think you're
how long will his position last?
Oh, yeah. And then this one, I don't want to guess. So I'm assume that it's going to be as long as there's no end term date. It's up to us as a board if we feel like, we want to remove him and find another replacement. I think that's up to the board, but I don't think there's a term limit as I understand it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to give a little background, he was a longtime prosecutor in Alameda County. That's kind of his work background. I know he was running for judgeship. Has he dropped out of that race officially?
I believe so. Again, I don't want to quote for him, but I'm almost positive that he's truly focused on this role.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good. And so other departments, I know you were working with the Department of Police Accountability. Have they stepped out of are they still helping him get set up, or what is that?
Yeah, I think they are still kind of helping him set up again because he hasn't had the staff yet. he's kind of building that out right now. And so he does have to work with DPA to kind of, which is great because DPA has been kind of like doing the work. They've been like the liaison as since we didn't have an inspector general, they've been submitting their monthly and quarterly reports to us and acting on behalf of the Office of Inspector General. So it makes sense to me that they still would need to help him ramp up.
Yeah. And so what can, I guess, shifting a little bit, if people want to get involved with the Sheriff's Oversight Board, or, you know, what can they, how can they benefit from the existence of this board? Can you tell us a little bit about community involvement? I know you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I wrote out like a nice, I'm like trying to pick. So I would say, okay, community engagement. So I think we, like I said, mentioned before, we are dependent upon community engagement to help drive the ship. My focus in specifically working with the most impacted is really to understand the pain points and the challenges and help bring that to leadership's attention to help solve for it. There are things that are kind of out of our power and scope, and we will defer to whatever department that it does fall under. But I do see the community as having a pivotal role in our work that we do. And then as far as like how can they participate, it's like we have our monthly meetings. It's like once the first Friday of every month from 2 to 5 p.m. And then we also have our board email, which they can reach out anytime and we'll answer in a timely manner. And then the last piece that I definitely want to work on is like the accessibility piece. I think I do find it a little difficult to have people take time out of their work to come down to City Hall, to make it in person. And obviously they can attend virtually, but again, that would be assuming that they have time to watch it during that time frame. So I would love coming from, my day job and bringing that lens here is to make it more accessible. And I look at the LA oversight boards as kind of like the North Star, 'cause I think they do such a good job with making their meetings super accessible. They have it on YouTube, they have it on Facebook, and I think that's like very key to helping engage the community and meet them where they're at.
Yeah. And they can provide their comments. They can come give public comment.
Exactly.
And even if the board, I guess, isn't able to like tell the sheriff's department to do something, you guys can also amplify their voices as well.
Yes. It's like helping shine, whether the more eyes and ears on it, it brings it makes it more important, it elevates the issue.
Yeah. I know there were some community outreach meetings early on. I think it was about hiring Inspector General, but people were not coming out to those meetings. What do you think happened there?
You know what? I'm going to be transparent with that one. This one, I mean, I come from a big family. I am Pacific Islander. It's a stereotype. It's very true. A lot of my family members live in the city, and I tried to get them to come out to one of the few meetings. I think Amazon Crocker was one of them. But, again, it's like people are busy. People have lives. People have jobs. People have kids. And it's hard to convince them to come and take time, right? Especially, after work. I think that's one piece of it. It's just like, life, especially the people who are going to care about it most, right? Are literally the in custody clients and their families. Those are the people that are going to care about this issue the most. And so that is one of the reasons why it's not surprising to me that there was low participation in those meetings. To be honest, again, it comes back to like bringing awareness that this board exists. Like we're fairly new, right? Police Commission and the DPA's office has been there for, I assume, years, right? Decades. So of course they're going to have more eyes and, bodies to it. But for us, like we're new. I'd love to just kind of help spread the word that we exist and then what we can do. And yeah.
I think Jenny, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a question here. The police commission worked pretty successfully with the Human Rights Commission in San Francisco, and they sort of curated not only public meetings, but having some of the most impacted people and a range of people participate to provide input. Have you considered working with the Human Rights Commission to try and get better feedback, more diverse feedback to the board?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, this is also just me just being super new and green and trying to understand the lay of the land. I had to literally build out a visual chart because there were so many different organizations and departments that touch in custody clients, and then the type of services that they offer. So I'm totally open to working with the Human Rights Commission. I think Public Defender's Office is also another key department that I'm looking to help to closely work with, because also just like a side note of like a personal story, the late Jeff Adachi had helped my uncle back in like the early 90s with a case. He was like, it was one of those like cases where he was accused of a crime that he didn't commit, and he was facing like a long sentence, life sentence really. And Jeff kind of helped, basically helped him get out of that case. And then my uncle was able to like go off and have a family and raise kids. And so this, in terms of like civic duty and where like how important it is to me, it's like it hits home for me. It's not just my uncle, like there's a bunch of different family members that have been incarcerated over the years, but yeah.
I do just want to note that we have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get to the question most important to you. And we've had multiple questions in because, as you said, Ovava, people are really confused about what is your role and what should they come to you about, and what specifically can you really do if issues are identified, if the public would like to see the sheriff charged or at least reprimanded or receive new training. Could you, I think that's a question you were going to ask again, Eleni, too, is, you know, what powers do you have, and what issues can people come to you about?
Yeah, I think that's a fair game question. I think it makes sense that there's a lot of confusion about what the board can do. I just want to level set because I think it's super important to kind of level set with what we can do as a board. In terms of board power, it's not direct, it's actually indirect, right? We're not enforcers. We don't make the laws. At best, we can make policy recommendations, again, like I said before, that the sheriff's office can choose to implement. An emphasis on choose, right? This is unlike the police commission, the department, the DPA's office that has more political bite. And then in terms of what can be brought to our attention, it's like I think the issues and concerns, just whatever runs the gamut that happens to impact in custody clients, bring it to our attention. And I think, what else did I want to mention? Yeah.
Okay. Just so we don't run out of time, I want to try to just cover a couple of more topics that we have. Let's talk about the jail facilities. I know that's been kind of controversial in San Francisco.
Yeah.
The conditions of the jails. What role does the board play in, you know, the expansion or reduction of our jail population, the quality of our jails? I'm just going to list off a few concerns that have come across my radar over the past couple of years. Is, you know, there's too many inmates, a growing inmate population, not enough sheriffs. They've had to expand into another part of the jail because of this. Last meeting of the board, a bunch of community groups came and said that they weren't getting access to the jails to do their programs, which our sheriff's department is known for having extensive programs within the jails. And it sounds like sometimes at least inmates aren't getting access to those. There was a lawsuit about getting sunlight for inmates in jail, and it seems like the outcome was that a covering was removed from a few windows. just to like kind of throw a bunch of stuff at you, sorry. Yeah, tell me a little bit about what the board can do with regard to some of these issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are fair issues to bring up. I will say, again, to just kind of level set, like a lot of the work we needed the inspector general to be hired first to kind of do the day-to-day operations and kind of look at the jail facilities and more of like that in the weeds work versus what the board is responsible for is really just setting up the vision and more big pictures and also looking at the policies versus like the nitty gritty that's the Office of Inspector General will be doing.
So what are some of those policies, and what is your vision, I guess?
I think, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board. I will say for myself, my vision really is kind of like we're literally laying the groundwork right now. So it's and laying out as a board in our next meeting, I think we decided as a board what our timeline and process might be. But as far as for me personally, what my vision is to kind of again engage community participation, right? Because there's not really much we can do as a board as far as like the political legal bite that we have, but we can just help shine more of a light on issues. And I just see the community participation as a big part of this. And then also media, which I mentioned earlier as well.
We're also requesting reports. I know the police commission, different commissioners have requested different types of reports from the department, and you know, sometimes it'll take a while or they're not able to provide it, but even just asking for that kind of information can help with the bringing light to things like you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. And the sheriff's report, like I know that we can ask, the board can request anything on whatever subject matter at any interval that we want. DPA also does their own reporting. And then again, we just hired the inspector general, right? So he's also ramping up on how and rolling out what the report template is going to look like and the processes. So all of that is coming down the pipe. It's just, you know, I understand the public is you know, anxious to hear what that is.
Jumping ahead a little bit to the topic of use of force in the jails, how are sheriff deputies trained now? I know that there was Assembly Bill 392 tightened the standard for use of deadly force a few years ago, but top of mind, I think for some people right now, is that the sheriff's deputy, Scott New, who was responsible for orchestrating the fight club that you mentioned at the very beginning of this chat, is actually being rehired, and he was accused of many egregious violations over the course of many years. And so what are your thoughts on this case? Is the board gonna, you know, with its limited power, try to address that or cases like that, prevent things like that from happening again?
Yes, I think that's a good one to talk about. So to my knowledge, I'm not as familiar with this piece. I can say as a first step, obviously we have to hire the IG who has more of a direct role. I will say personally, as like a board member, like at best we can review and make policy recommendations. I think it does, and I also want to note this because I think it's important. We don't always agree as a board. I think that is probably apparent. Yeah, it's apparent. It's like not only like in like when the public can see it, but even in emails. Like I'm also shooting off an email and I'm like, this is unacceptable. I will not like, and I'm asking for answers. I'm demanding for answers. So it's kind of like there's also behind the scenes discussions happening as well. Then also too, sometimes legally we can't even talk about it, you know, and I think that's another thing that is unfortunate because I'm looking at I mean, I understand it from like a community member, and then now I'm in the weeds. I'm like, oh my God, this is like it's like a structural issue.
Yeah,
you know,
I think people would definitely appreciate even just a little bit more transparency into the kind of things that the board does, or, you know, even seeing that you're requesting that kind of information.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
I'm going to jump in because I think that's a great suggestion, whether the board hosts more meetings like this or the league does or Mission Local. The league would love to see more transparency and community engagement. But we are in at our time. So Eleni, if you don't mind wrapping up, thank you both so much for doing this today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ovava, for being here today. The next Sheriff's Oversight Board meeting that you mentioned, when is that?
March 5th,
Next Friday.
Friday. Yep, next Friday, 2 to 5 p.m.
Thanks everyone who joined today. Please email volunteer@lwvsf.org to learn about the league's programs, volunteer opportunities, sign up for more events like this. I'm a reporter with Mission Local if you'd like to follow up with some of my reporting. And thanks, Ovava.
Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, everyone else. Bye.